Hey everyone, it's Jane. Thanks so much for stopping by. I made 3 very unique 4th of July cards for you. I've been very busy this summer, and as I went through my stash to see what I had, I realized I did not have a star cover plate. So I went to my Cricut and I made a cover plate for you that you can download and cut out on your Cricut or Silhouette for free. It's a free SVG. You just need to go to my blog post and my website and download it from my resource library. I've created it in different formats for you as well with some instructions. I started out with some blue, navy blue cardstock. I cut out 2 layers. As you can see here, I'm sorry I'm out of frame. I got to figure out how to get these in frame, but I just wanted to show you that they cut out really well and they're attached in 95% of the areas, and they look really well, in my humble opinion, on cards. I started out with the My Favorite Things Celebrate die cut. I put a piece of 1/2-inch purple tape down the middle using Fawn Lobster ink and my Tim Holtz mini ink blending tool and foam. Starting at the tape, I work my way up trying to get a lot of ink in that foam, and I work my way up, and I have red on the top part, and then you will see that I take that and I have a separate tool and I will do blue on the bottom. This is a Stampin' Up! Navy blue. I did not have any other navy blues in my stash, and I'm sorry that my frame is bouncing as well. My tripod sits on my desktop and I have a heavy hand and I forget that it sits on my desktop. I'm sorry about that. When I'm done doing this, I'm going to carefully peel the tape away. Don't want to rip that die cut. And you will see after I peel it away that I have a stripe, and I just love that. I just think that is so fun. It's a really way to stretch your die cuts. I'm going to layer 3 more behind it. I use Nina 110-pound cardstock with my Tim Holtz pokey tool, I call it, to get all of my extra pieces out from behind. I'm going to use Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. It's my favorite adhesive to layer all of those together. I kind of lay them on top, and you can see I kind of push it all together so that you have a nice die cut, which gives you a much more dimension on your cards. I'm going to use a red card base for this. It's top folding, 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch A2 card. I'm using my Teflon bone folder, which I know is expensive, but it is amazing because it does not leave any shiny marks on your card base. I have a little spot there, and I knew I wanted to put a white inside to write on, so I folded it around to hide that. I'm going to glue those 2 together, and I'm going to then glue those to the top of the card. And don't you wish you could create in real time this fast? Although I have to say, while these were cutting out on my Cricut, I was able to multitask and get a bunch of other stuff done. And I put a acrylic block on top just to get it to dry really well. And I was trying to figure out, as I was designing this, where I wanted to put my die cut. And you will see that I decided to put it right across the middle. I thought that looked the best, and you have the stars showing through, and you've got the red, white, and blue. But I wanted to put a little bling, so I used my Nuvo glitter pen, and I put a little pool of that off to the side, and then I would dip my brush into it so I could get a really good coverage, because I had a lot to cover, and when I squeezed the pen, I got too much coming out, so it was just easier just to dip it off to the right and get a little more coverage there. And it dried really nicely and gave it that shine that I felt that the card needed. It's a Nuvo glitter I think it's called a glitter gloss pen. I'm going to glue that to the top. Put my white piece across the center with my Celebrate die cut. I use my T-square to make sure it's all lined up nice and straight. I love that T-square. Glue the Celebrate to the top of that, again with the Nuvo glue, which is my favorite. And I just put little drops here and there. It comes out really good, really small. I don't put a lot on. I always put the lid on though every time because I don't want it to tip to clog, but I have never had that tip clog. Lining that up, putting the block back on top. I dug out my Little Things cherry mix and blueberry mix. I love the jewels. I love this little triangle jewel holder with my crystal Catania. And what I do is I lay my jewels on top to see where I want them. And then what I do is I go back and I pick up the jewel with my left hand. You can see they just slide right out of that little triangle tray. I pick the jewel up with my left hand and then I put the glue down with my right. And I don't know why it's being so wonky. There you go. And all the supplies are linked below. Everything is listed here. And for more detail, you can go to my blog post. There'll be a lot more detail there. I put a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white cardstock in the middle so that I have room to write a sentiment, or a message, I'm sorry, a message to my lucky recipients of my 4th of July cards. This is a Papertrey cover plate stripes. I made a bunch of blue ones at a future project, and I saved all of my extras behind in my stamp pockets. I have 2 layers of blue, and I put 1 layer of white on this particular card, just for a little bit of added dimension. And sometimes when my cards get a little busy and I want a place to put something, I put a vellum strip. So I cut a vellum strip here. I used a Honeybee Stacking Stars die, and I cut a bunch of different colors, blue, white, and red. Decided where I wanted to lay those on my card project. And then I decided where I wanted that strip to be. I used an 1/8 of an inch score tape. I need some heavy score tape for that vellum. I lay that on there. Figure out where the stars are going to go. I sped it up. You don't need to watch me do that. Make sure that was straight. Cut the edges off. And then I put a piece of white cardstock behind that. And then I'm like, no, I don't think I want white. I think I want red. I think I want a little more color. I put all of that in there because I want to show you that just because you have a thought in mind doesn't mean that you stick with the thought. And that's how I line things up. And as you can see, I cut the red a little bit too big, so I cut that off. It comes off really easy with these scissors. These are Fiskars Teflon scissors, which I absolutely love. And the pink and white stay in my craft room. Everybody knows they belong to me. And then I'm going to lay out my stars. I'm going to glue them down one by one. Make a little layer. You will see at the end of the card, after I get the white stars on, when you look at the picture at the end, I put a little blue star in the middle of the white stars just for a little added interest. I will also go back and add some of the Honeybee jewels as well on this one. I use just the blueberry, and I always use that acrylic block to hold my stuff down just to keep it straight. And I glued this all together on a top folding 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white note card. I use Nina 110 pound solar white cardstock pretty much for everything except for when I do the inside. I cut that same Celebrate die cut out of red cardstock because I did not want to put a sentiment on the front. I just thought it looked really good just the way it is. And I do that a lot. Sometimes I keep my card fronts very simple. Now I'm using another Celebrate die by Sugar Pea, and I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Stacking Stars. I already had the red glitter already cut out. I took it out of the back of my package. I glued my 2 layers of white stars to the to the front of the blue cardstock. I cut another layer of white for the stacking stars and I layered those together. I cut my red my red cardstock out. And I didn't know what color I wanted the front of my die cut to be. So I went with the 3 layers of red, white, and blue. And when you look really close, you can actually see the 3 layers, the white on top, and then the red, and then the blue. I glue those together again, as I did with everything else. You can see it just a little tiny bit. I'm trying to let you look at it. And somebody might not even notice, but I know that it's there. I cut the edges off of the blue that were hanging off, and I glued the red glitter stars to the top with a white back behind it. And then I did some Nuvo crystal glaze on top of the die cut to give it a little shine. I'm using my pokey tool to kind of move it around. For some reason it comes out really fast out of my bottle, so I try to eliminate how much comes out. And that is my 3 4th of July cards. I hope you all like them, and please go to my blog post to get your free SVG cut file. Have a great 4th of July.